article thing. On the last paragraph, starting Mr. Jessman, said Mr. Davis felt that seeing instead of seeing is the...
I had noticed something like that too, but Joanna and I had just looked at it, and I was looking at a different word. So, seeing.
Can we change that to that sense? They had not followed protocol call instead of...
Yeah, that's actually probably a better...
Yeah.
That since, instead of seeing as,
Yeah.
since.
With that correction, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as corrected. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed?
Abstain.
One abstention. So moved. Warrant articles. Yay! Everybody's excited, right? Right, John?
Oh, yeah.
Draft.
I don't know. You'll have to ask the
This is
select.
draft number 3.
This is draft number 3. You're specifying draft. What we vote on here tonight is what we'll be voting on. I'm not a fan of last-minute warrant articles at all. So whether the numbers get changed or the
There are
wording
other
get
warrant
changed.
articles out there that are non-money warrant articles.
Right, that have nothing to do with the budget committee.
Worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll start at the top. The first article here is to see if the town will vote to establish a capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35:1 for the purpose of an engineering study for repair of the retaining walls and other construction expenses for stabilization work for the Tilton Northfield Island Park, and to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to be placed in this fund, and further to appoint the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend said fund. So the majority vote required. The Selectmen are recommending this. The town of Northfield is supposed to be doing something similar on their side. What notification?
It's the same article.
It's the same, identical warrant article. The only thing that I don't see in this is that some wording that if they don't pass this, that we won't either. And normally, what...
We were going to put into a capital account, and that way, when they get around to doing it, we were already having, the money would be in a reserve account for that purpose. We're not going to go off on our own and just do it, but it's like every year, we either pass it and they don't, or they pass it and we don't, and this way, but meanwhile, the problem's getting worse and worse on the island, so if we put it into an account for that purpose, and hopefully they'll pass it too, and we can get started this year. But if they don't, then if they pass it next year, we'll be ready.
The money will already be...
Yeah. So, but it would be used for that particular purpose.
I personally think that if they don't pass it this year, then there's got to be a different direction taken. I mean, this will be like the third time that the two towns have tried to go and pass at the same time, and I mean, how long are you going to beat the same horse? I mean, it's just crazy.
Well, I think Sandy's
And the
point is
island-
well taken.
and the island's just eroding, and we're not doing anything about it. Well, I agree with you, Sandy. Put the money in the capital reserve, but I think if we keep waiting for both communities to do something, we got to look at it a different approach, I think.
Well, I think this is a pretty good approach, actually, because Northfield can't say, well, we would have passed it, except we didn't know what was Tilton was going to do.
My concern is, Lynn, is still's not going to get anything done.
Which is possible, but the money will be there, and it can be taken out of the capital reserve fund if that eventuality comes about. I think this is a pretty good
Oh, yeah, I agree
splitting
with this
solution.
warrant article. I'm just saying, if this year, both communities can't pass and start moving forward in a positive direction, then there's got to be a different approach taken. That's my point.
Well, I don't think there's any question about that, because
And we may have to take the bull by the horns.
We have, I mean,
We can't
very
take
rarely get words, and it would be simple to lose that little island. you know, a lot of people love going there, and it's, you know, part of our town.
Well, I also think it's probably going to cost us more money than it would originally, too.
Well, I don't think
The work's
so,
getting
but that-
greater and greater as we keep putting it off.
Great.
Okay, that's only my two comments on that.
Does anybody else have anything they want to add? Okay. I'll make a motion that the Budget Committee approves this, or recommends this appropriation.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend this warrant article for the $15,000 for the Capital Reserve Fund for the Tilton Northfield Island Park. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? So moved. The next warrant article here, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $60,000 to be added to the Town Roads, Streets, and Bridges Reconstructions and/or Repair Capital Reserve Fund that was created in 2005. This is not included in the operating budget, and the selectmen recommend this. We've talked about this here in the committee on a couple of occasions, especially since Dennis had given us his 10-year plan. And as I said previously, this is a start. It is nowhere near what we're going to be needing and to put away. I understand that it's hard to ask the town to put away more money for a project like this, put money into a savings account that's not going to be used right away. But I would rather save for a large expenditure than have to finance that large expenditure later down the line.
Yep. What is in that account, anyway?
200 and, is it 23,000 right now, or 7?
No, it's more than that.
It's a little over 200,000, 240 something.
Yeah,
Is
I think
this
we're
in
at 243,
addition-
248.
Did we put 40,000 away now?
Yes,
This is in addition to the 40.
yes.
No.
it's not
It
additional.
replaces the
In
40.
place of,
40,000
That's
last year. I thought that's what you asked.
Oh, that was on a warrant article too, that's not built into the budget.
Last year it was 40,000, this year is 60,000 based on the 1.6 million 10-year plan.
Right.
Right.
Can you run that number, Tim, again, please?
$259,354.44 as of the end of January.
Okay,
And we'll need
thank
that
you.
44 cents.
It all counts.
Never noticed. I see it.
Yeah, you can't
Exactly.
even get that, it's 45
I
now, so
know,
you're
it's right.
penny short.
When was this account established?
2005.
2005, right?
2000, that's what it says here in the warrant article, and I would agree with that. I kind of remember doing it. I kind of remember when we did it. It was when we did the CIP, when we first did the CIP, we had this established, and that was like my first year here. And
Have we put 40,000 every year in there?
we have, yeah.
So we've made 19,000 in interest over the time?
I would have to check. I
Well, it'd be
wouldn't know.
240,000 for 6 years, at 40,000 a year. And we've got 259, 354, 44, right, Tim?
Yeah.
So we made $19,000 in interest. So we've never taken any out of this fund, ever, huh? For any road construction or anything? Where did the Peabody, was that a separate
That was
warrant
its
article?
own, that was set.
I agree with the chair. I don't think, I think there's only so much you can ask of the voters, but I still think we're fooling ourselves with $60,000 with what was presented by the road agent.
I agree.
Well,
It's a start. I agree, Sandy, but I think if you're really looking at putting a fair amount of money away, or a sensible amount of money away to cover the expense in the future, because as we know, when you're doing road construction, petroleum with the hot top is the key ingredient, and we know where that's heading. It isn't going to go back down.
No. The $20,000 that's going to be needed for this year's planned repairs, that was in his budget? Is that in his budget, or is that coming out of this fund? Do you remember?
what is it that is repaired to do? I don't think so many numbers. Maybe
No, I think he had that in his budget, didn't he?
I think it is. I think
It's
it's
in the
his
budget, I thought it was too.
I'm not
Right,
100% positive, but I think it is.
I think it was too.
This is just the,
10-year, he says 10-year road, yeah.
1.6 million.
1.6.
1.6.
146 million, we're all going home.
146 million.
But he did have some in his budget.
Right.
Yeah, because the things that he was,
The smaller projects, he can handle through the 60,000, 60,000. The larger projects will probably have to bond. But it's a great start,
yeah, it helps.
especially the class 2. We know where that's going.
I didn't write down my totals as
And
to
if
what
the
it was going to
matching
be.
funds are ever going to be there too. That's the thing.
We have to put in for them now,
No, but I'm just saying, if they're ever going to be there.
if they're going to be there.
You may say they are, and then you'll never get them too, so.
And I don't have my totals, I know I wrote them down at some point, but I have the 10-year plan, but I don't have the totals by year. I know I did it at some point, but I don't know where it is.
I believe it's in his budget.
Okay. All right. So other than agreeing that there's not enough money here, is there any other discussion in regards to this warrant article?
I'll make a motion that we accept the warrant article as presented and support it.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to recommend the town approves the appropriation of $60,000 for the town roads, streets, and bridges reconstruction and/or repair capital reserve fund. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Is there anyone opposed? So moved. Next article. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be added to the Recreational Facilities Capital Reserve Fund that was created in 2002. This warrant article for the last few years has been kind of a, whatever was left in the parks budget, let's see if we can throw it into the Recreation Facilities Fund. This year, it's a flat $5,000. Is that because there's no money left in his budget this year, or?
No. Let me be frank with you. Have I heard that statement before? This was not a unanimous vote by the selectmen. This figure came from the selectmen, not from the Parks Commission. We have yet to hear from the Parks Commission on it. We know that they want something in it, but we don't have a final figure for that. It was put in by the liaison to the Parks Commission. So we went with the 5,000.
What is in that fund?
23,000?
26,945.03.
Right, and last year there was closer to 40,000.
43,000.
43,000.
Right, and it was used to do the ice rink and the well.
$16,000 was spent out of that?
Yes, the ice rink,
Well, and then
the well.
deposit for the irrigation.
and then irrigation.
For the last 2 years, I personally have not recommended that the money that was left in the parks budget go into the Recreation Facilities Capital Reserve Fund. And personally, I don't think that this is I don't think this is a warrant article that we should pass at this time. But that just goes with my general year in, year out. Not that we shouldn't have it. In the past years, it was, basically we kept throwing money into this account, and it wasn't getting used at all. Now I have the concern that it is, the parks are the agents for this fund, so there's no real oversight as to what they're doing with the money, and I disagree with that as well. That's my personal feelings on this.
I make a motion we don't allow $5,000, or don't support it, I'll put it that way.
Well, they still have to,
They have 27,000 in their bet, and that's,
I'm not questioning that, I was going to say something else, but there's a motion on it, so
I'll second that motion.
okay.
now we can have discussion all we want.
There's a motion and the second. Further
They
discussion?
still have to abide by the rules, they still have to abide by the policies of the town, whether in the guidelines that they use, whether it be contracting or suppliers or so on and so forth, and purchasing. They still have to abide by those guidelines.
A
I think
concern I
it's a
have...
new, I think this year, in all fairness, because I totally voted against giving them the autonomy to do so. I wasn't in favor of it. I think that their intent was to, their hands have been tied for a long time to do the things that they've really wanted to do over the years with some of the money that, as you say, Tony, has been building up, and they've had great ideas to do with it, but weren't allowed within their constraints to use it. So this year is their first year that they've been out there doing what they want to do and create the Parks Commission as they want it to be created. Also, they've taken over some of the responsibilities that Main Street has let go. So, are they doing great things for the town? Yes, they are doing great things for the town. Are they going to need the money to do those great things? Yes. I support that. I support it 100%. I think the first year it's overwhelming because you just look at it and you just say, whoa, they're spending a lot of money, but this is their first year out. And they've been wanting the skate rink for a few years now. They've wanted it at Riverfront Park for a few years. They just haven't been able to get it. Now they get it, and I can't see them in the near future spending thousands and thousands of dollars on projects like that without coming in within the policies of us. So we've done this in the past, and I think we should continue it. That's my own personal feeling. Not particularly.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done.
No, go ahead.
Concern I have is they went up there and they expended around $13,000 to drill a well on land that's leased to the town from the Catholic Church. And I'm well aware that the Catholic Church currently shares a priest now. Has changed this last year, sharing a priest with Franklin. And there's no question that in the future the diocese is going to be a closed church. When that happens, St. John's Cemetery, which the diocese owns this piece of land, and it was the extension for the St. John's Cemetery, is not going to be needed. And the valuable piece of land, there's no one that can guarantee how many years we're going to have that available. And to drill a well on a piece of land that you have a lease with no guarantee on how long you're going to have it for $13,000, to me, is a poor expense of the taxpayers' money. Because in 2 years or 3 years, I bet you within 5 years, I'll be surprised if St. Mary's of the Assumption is still open until, with the way that they're going with the priests. And once that happens, the diocese is going to have no reason to have that piece of property, and they're going to be looking at selling off property that is no value to the church. And that's my fear with that, that you've got no guarantee of how long you're going to have that out there, where they're currently at. And that's just the facts. That's what's happening in the Catholic Church. Everyone knows that. And, we attended, in my profession, I attended a meeting 5 years ago that said that within 5 years they were going to be sharing a priest with Franklin, and it's happened. And it also, that within the future, there was the church that was going to be closed, St. Joseph's will stay open in Belmont, and St. Paul's in Franklin, and it'll be the Assumption that'll be closed up. When that happens, the diocese has no reason to, St. John's Cemetery, you can ask Norm, he runs it. they have, they have plenty of room in the back for years of burials there, and so they've got no reason to go to that other piece of land. And when that happens, a piece of land that is at 20, you know the value, we've all dealt with that. It's more valuable to be sold than it is to keep in the diocese. And that's my fear. And that's the thing that bothers me, is that where was the thought process of drilling that well? I guess, and that's a concern that I have with the money, and that was a large chunk of money to be spent on one item. To gain for what? And then the other concern I have is Catherine said at the end of the table and said that the money had to be used to create recreation was the point, that was the term that she used. And she said that's how they put the well in, is to create recreation. They were going to fill, and then you read in the Echo that they were going to fill it by the fire department. That's what the article, I believe, said in the paper, that they were going to fill it by the fire department, not by the well. So I don't know what to believe, I guess.
Can I hear from other members of the committee as to how they feel? Bob?
I'm against this. I think they get $26,000. Why they need $5,000 more? They didn't spend any money for 2 or 3 years. They spent 16 or so. But if they spend 16 again, they've still got 10. I don't see why we have to throw 5 more at it. We gave them everything we wanted for, this year. We said, we're going to let you do what you want to do this year. We as a budget committee, we were kind of hands off. We gave them all the money they asked for. Their part-timer, all the other things that they wanted to do. They have money in reserve. I'm against the article, against the $5,000.
I have to agree. I think without a specific plan for what, if they're saving money for a specific thing, it does seem like a unnecessary expenditure.
John?
Usually our capital reserve funds, they do have some type of goals, some kind of plans, what they're trying to accomplish with it, and an endpoint as to what they need. We have no idea what's really needed and how much has to be established in an account for recreational facilities, capital reserve. And until then, I can't see putting this much money into it and let it... I'm opposed to this, in other words.
I'm opposed to it as well, for the reasons that everybody else has given. And I know that when they came before us, I specifically asked the question, do you have any guarantees that this money you spent to put a well on land that is not ours, that you're going to be able to use that land? And nobody ever answered that. And as a matter of fact, I think they kind of laughed about it. Because I have the same concerns. I don't know why you would go out and buy a piece of, put that much money into something without a guarantee that that land is going to be protected for you, and there is no guarantee. So I'm against it as well. And again, as Pat pointed out, they didn't even give a dollar amount. The selectmen made this $5,000 up. So.
Any other discussion?
The only other thing I'd say is I think that the selectmen are being more than fair with them. Because, I can remember the selectmen's meetings where the Parks Commission was actually kind of fighting to have the control of it all. There was many meetings where they were in front of the selectmen and they were trying to gain control in not the most friendly, passionate way either. And I hear what the selectmen are saying, that they never came in front of them, but I won't support it. I'll put it that way.
I'm going to call the question. All of those in favor of not recommending...
I already had a motion there. That's not to recommend.
Yeah, we were just having discussions.
Right, I was going to call the question.
Sorry about that.
I think I said that first, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
You're calling the question.
Call the question.
You're right.
The Budget Committee does not recommend this appropriation. All those in favor of not recommending this appropriation, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed?
Not recommend.
Okay, so we have 6 that do not recommend and 1 that does. The motion passes. The Budget Committee does not recommend the appropriation. Okay. Next article. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $17,000 to be added to the revaluation capital reserve fund that was created in 2002. This has been a consistent warrant article. This comes up with the $94-something thousand dollars or $90,000 that's needed every 5 years for the complete town reval. This is,
98,000.
yeah. When do,
Pretty much pays for it in 5 years.
right, pays for it in its time frame.
It's just something we do every year.
Exactly.
I make a motion that we support the 17,000 to be put in the revaluation capital reserve.
A second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to recommend this appropriation. Is there any other discussion on it? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of recommending the $17,000 for the revaluation capital reserve fund, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? So moved. Okay. The next one, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,500 to the Lake Improvement Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund that was created in 2007. This fund was established basically to help address some milfoil issues in the lake,
Which still exists, right?
which is an ongoing
Yeah.
issue. Do we know if any of the money, I don't think any of the money was spent out of this fund last year. I don't
No,
remember.
some of the funds was the year before, but not
Right.
last year.
There's a balance of $8,101.47.
8,000?
How much was put in originally, Tim?
I think the first, it was either 3,000 or 3,500, is how it started.
And what's been expended out of that fund?
There have been monies expended in prior years to 2 organizations. I'd have to look up those organizations to see.
Joe's got plans this year for it.
I think about,
Someone's going to have to take the bull by the horns because it's not going to get any better. That's a type of thing
You're
that...
going to mention to the Silver Lake Association, they should make application. The one lake that's not completely within the bounds of Tilton is Tilton Budget. And I don't even know if they understand that this money exists specifically for that purpose. But I'm going to find out and see about moving it along, because the longer we wait, the worse it gets. The fish die, and it ruins the quality of our water.
And that's a nice lake.
I know the,
Motion that we support this.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend $1,500 for the Lake Improvement Maintenance and Capital Reserve Fund. Is there any discussion, John?
I know that Christie's have used the funds in the past, and I believe they got some matching funds along with it for having this, that it's very important to keep up with this, and it'd be great with Joe encouraging people
Yeah.
to do it. There's a lot of tax basis that we get from the lakefront properties, and
Well, it's not only that, it's nice to go by a lake that actually looks like a lake instead of a frog pond. That's what would happen.
And one of the key areas they did through, like Jay's Marina, which is a very key area to do, because once you chop the milfoil, it turns into many milfoils, and it floats downstream. And hence
the
we
rivers
have
right
there. It's into Silver
Silver Lake, and if anybody's ever canoed or paddled along the Winnipesaukee River, you can see the impact of it.
That river where there's a lot of, that's all Tilton right there. And there's offsite, that's wet, just wet.
Big thing to encourage people to use this fund. That's it.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of adding $1,500 to the Lake Improvement Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? So moved. The last article is just the one that we'll take our budget to town meeting. As you know, our budget differs from the selectmen's by, what, $1,300, $1,500?
1157.
1157. So, you know,
That's it.
not that big
Pretty close.
an issue.
Real
yeah.
close.
You guys did a fabulous job presenting us.
If you'd come down 500, if you'd come down that, you'd have been with us.
Want to talk about that?
I would have we would have met you.
Yeah, on that. Okay, so I mean, this is all, I was very happy when these came across today, that there wasn't anything, I think that I had sent an email to Joanna earlier, and I said, I can expect this and this and this and this unless there's surprises. And this, and this was all right there, with no surprises. Thank you very much. I appreciate
I
that. I
don't know
appreciate
that
the work.
there's any, I don't know that there's any, unless there's last-minute petitions that come in.
Is there a deadline that's already over for that? or-
No, February, it's on that calendar right there. February 7th, with the petition warrant articles, the one underneath that, yeah, that one right there. The one you have, is, I think, is the one.
So if another one comes in, we have to schedule another public hearing?
If I'm running
Not
more.
petition warrant.
Non-petition warrant articles go right on, no matter what, regardless of what you say, that it goes on exactly as written.
Petition by the citizens.
I don't know that there's anything out there. I would be,
There's one concerning zoning on Route 3, I think. I haven't seen it, but I've heard about it.
We had a
Oh, yes,
Yeah, there is.
There is,
There is.
right.
But that's not on money, that's
Not on money.
No, no, that's a
Not a
zoning-
money, I
that's a
don't
zoning thing.
know that
It's
there's
petition
any
anyway, so you
money
can't do it.
articles out there at all.
While we're on warrant articles, and I ask just a question, Chair?
sure.
Of the selectmen. Where do we stand with the swap of Tilton land, Tilton School land?
We have a meeting with Jim Clements. We met with Jim Clements about a month, maybe a little over a month ago, just before Christmas. And we have a couple of options, and the one that seemed to be the best option for Tilton was to, if we have our pond, their pond, and then we have our property, and then their property, and if we took a chunk like this and did a boundary adjustment for them so that they could have a buffer to this property here, then we could swap the pond even. No monies, just even swap. And that way we'd still have access, and the wildlife corridor would still be there. The wildlife corridor goes pretty high up here, in through here, so he was going to contact an engineer to see how many feet from the edge of the property to here could we go without disturbing the wildlife corridor, which is clearly marked, to get this boundary adjustment. And then he was going to call us to meet, in which he has, which should be this week, this coming week or the week after.
The reason
Have
I
it all
raise
done.
that, Pat, is because I'm concerned that if we don't do this by the time June, by the time he gets done,
He
we're
wants
done.
it done before then.
Yeah, we're done, because we,
Right.
the new headmaster you got, that'll never happen.
Right. He wants everything done before that, but we have an opportunity to obtain the pond. In lieu of that, this will be not quite a half an acre in total, and it won't even go up to the end in this property. It will only go up to the end of ours, so the
It doesn't go all the way to
abutters-
the Lawrence property.
Right, the abutters here, which would be, it goes only up to the Lawrence property. The two abutters, I can't think of the one in between Roy Wakefield, but there's one in between Lawrence and Roy Wakefield. Those two properties would not be affected at all.
Doug Richters, I think is.
Right, yeah, Doug's. So those two properties would not be affected whatsoever. It would only come up to the Lawrence property, and that would be it. So that's where we're at.
Because I think you talk about creating recreation for the youth. That pond, after the Rotary Club has their fishing derby for the kids, it's sad that pond, and maybe if the town gets it, we can pass an ordinance where that's just a youth fishing pond.
Right.
And that way the kids, if some father wants to take his son or his daughter up there to fish, they can have a place to go, and there'll be actually fish in there. because it's a great little pond, and it's close, and if the kids, if
And
kids
there's
are up there...
never anybody there. It just breaks my heart every time.
Well, right after they put the fish in.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That afternoon, there's tons of
Adults
them,
and they're
but...
fishing like heck.
But I also,
The kids pull the lines out.
getting back to the skating issue, that pond freezes as quick as anything in town. I mean, I've walked on that pond before any ice is froze anywhere in New Hampshire. And it's sheltered, and, if there was a building there and the Rotary or another service club could go down and serve hot chocolate to the kids or whatever, they had a little building there and you could put electricity, you could actually, on town-owned land, we could actually do something that'd be very creative and be very nice and be very local for the kids and for the
The
residents.
Rotary already has their lunch wagon. We could just
I know,
leave
they
it
already
there.
have their...
It used to be an island.
I don't know if it's still legal to do something like this, but up in Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, they have children's pond, like only children can fish in it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's
And
exactly
it's
what I'm saying.
designated as such, and I'm not sure how the laws read now.
And I'm sure you can do something to do, but I could see a lot of value in that pond bat. And that's
The town is clearly split in that, for the use of the pond. There's a lot of ecological value to the pond, and they don't want that disturbed by having it skated on, or in the summer having some type of recreation because of the wildlife that's there, and the green herons, and there's a rookery out back.
Well, they're not there in the winter.
No, they're not out there in the winter, but in the summer they are, and if you have fishing out there in the summer...
Yeah, but they're
they want
always,
them out there.
the herrings are always up on the far end where the trees keep the kids from getting to them.
The other thing is parking. We have to plow it and clear brush and stuff like
Wherever you
that.
have anything like that, John, you're gonna have to have plowing. I mean, they're
Right,
doing it,
they're
I think they're
plowing.
now, aren't they doing it at where they have the skating rink at the park? They're plowing. So, I mean, wherever, in New Hampshire, you're gonna have to plow no matter what.
Yep.
But I just, I think there could be a lot of value.
I was thinking that
The pond itself, you mean?
plowing upon damages and permits
Right.
for actually altering the terrain
Right.
in the wetlands. It's all wetlands in there, so.
But yeah, you can go onto the pond right from the access road they have without causing any disturbance. I mean, throughout New England, there's many communities that use the local pond for a skating rink. I mean, that's happens all over the place.
Either for...
It's going to be a great asset to the town, having that.
I think so.
My concern, Pat, is just that his time is of the essence, I guess. That's my-
Yeah.
Well, he was, it's been on him to get back to us, and he just did, just a week ago.
All right. Okay, we're going to address December financials, now that we've already planned our 2012 expenditures here and worked on our operating budget and everything. I wanted to just take an opportunity to go one more time over where we ended up for the year in the various lines, to see where we really overspent and how, right now, this is almost finalized. It's not quite, there's still issues that need to be resolved. This is not a final year-end December budget, but it's close enough for what we do on a month-to-month basis of keeping an eye on what's going on and where the expenditures are and where we came in and where we're really off. We used a little bit of this when we were doing the budget, but I wanted to just take a look through it and see where we're starting off.
Does that conclude our public hearing?
We're not having a public hearing.
Next week.
No, next week's a public hearing.
Okay.
We have to approve them
That's
tonight,
right.
and then we can have a public hearing next week on them. Woo-hoo. That should take about, I don't know,
10 minutes?
2 minutes.
15. We'll probably make it 15, just...
Probably be longer now, just the opposite of what we expect, so let's not jinx it.
I'll be about the 5,000.
Yeah.
That might be an hour.
Exactly, very well.
Check the hall.
All right, Town Hall. came in, at this point, it's 93% used. There's still a balance of 33. Have we come any closer to where the encumbrances are gonna be? Or those still, like, as to what's really gonna, I know it's all been encumbered, but
We're still waiting for the other ones. We have about $30,000 worth of 2011 expenses expected in. So you haven't figured that out for encumbrances,
No,
right?
still on track. Nothing's been modified. as of
nothing's
yet.
been modified, so we still have $80,000 worth of encumbrances out of this, the bottom line of this budget.
I anticipate there probably will be some that you have to talk about.
So the balance available, the balance is 171, and 30 of it's going to be needed, and 84 of it is, that's still about $50,000. That would be great if there's any money at all left over for the end of the year. That, I think that,
But there's also other expenses that will affect our fund balance, such as abating expense that isn't a budget item.
Right.
So things like that, I don't see
no, I'm just talking about not overspending what's here.
Well,
Was there any money moved out of the police budget that was moved into a different department?
Yep.
No?
There was movement within the police budget. There wasn't any money moved out of
The only reason I ask is there was $43,000 in there, in the line item for the wages of the officers
We moved some of that to the overtime part-time
Yeah, I know.
early.
But I guess my point is that we had $43,000 in there for an extra officer that was never hired. And we still expended 96, almost 97%.
Because we used some of that for the overtime,
Okay.
and then we used some of that
Yeah, the part-time went
part-time.
from 10 to 25,000.
Right, and then didn't we use some, like a couple of thousand of that for the,
Fixing the building.
no, was it the polygraph?
I'll tell you in 1 second.
I think it was the polygraph.
Have we generated any revenue off in that
We're starting to,
polygraph?
he had to be certified first.
Maybe somebody,
They have like 25, was it?
yeah, 25 before it's certified.
It's being used, that's for sure.
There were transfers made to purchase polygraph out of public purchases and building investigations. There was money moved in for building improvements,
Okay.
which the same amount came out of officer wages,
Right.
and money was moved into part-time wages. And so, no, I don't believe any money was moved out of the budget.
So it all remained within the PD budget. That was my point.
We also
Right.
had to deal with the increase from New Hampshire retirement, too.
Right.
I don't believe you can move money out of the PD budget.
Oh, I think you can put in any line item within the town. You think that. As long as the bottom line is the 4.6 million or whatever the town people said that the selectmen can spend, you as the governing body can spend right up to this last cent. And you can move it anywhere you want. You could slide everything into one line item if you wanted to. I mean,
Don't give them any ideas.
no, but I'm just saying. there's
Probably not
nothing-
your wisest idea,
There's
but...
nothing that prevents from that from happening, is what I'm
Then
saying.
it shows the chief is overexpending his budget.
That's
And that's
exactly.
the only fireable expense, excuse
I'm not putting words in your
for
mouth.
the chief is overextending his budget,
The only
overexpending his budget,
Total budget.
total budget,
Yeah.
right.
When you transfer it, that becomes...
He didn't do that.
So he wouldn't expect
No, as long as you don't overexpend the total line of the town, what it's passed, you're fine.
It amazes me that the PD probably has 80% of our our lines that are on the exception report. And they're within budget at the end of the year.
Well, because they had 43, yeah, but you gotta remember, just as I said, they had 43,000 in the line item that had no purpose, number one. And number two, I imagine that was not only just the 43,000, but I imagine also figured into the budget was benefits on that 43,000 officer, right? And retirement too.
Yep.
So all those line items had to increase with that extra officer being put in the line item. So I don't know what that figure would come up to, what, 70,000? I imagine you did it on the insurance too, a certain figure, huh?
about 80,000.
About 80,000, so with $80,000 with no expense, and you spent 54,
Yeah,
you've got
so-
left over, you're actually 26 shy. So they actually overspent themselves by like $26,000, if you want to look at it that way.
It'd have been all right if we hadn't put any money into the police station. We spent in excess of that amount of money in upgrades to the police station for safety and accessibility and things like that.
Oh, I know that, Joe, but I'm just saying, when you're trying to look at the numbers and figure out, when you see all the line items overexpended, that's one of the reasons.
Right.
That you can have a bunch of line items overexpended, but you still haven't overexpended the budget within the PD. That's my point.
Yep.
I mean, seriously underestimated the gasoline this year.
Well, I think that needs to be addressed, though.
It has been in the new budget.
No, addressed as far as idling.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I was looking here, there's a lot of items that seem to be really high just in December, but they're proportionally high in December. I'm looking at the telephone for the PD, it's almost $1,700, where we'd only spent, what, $9,500 for the rest of the year, or less than that. And all of a sudden, these bills are really high in December.
It could be a combination of things. There is a quarterly bill that comes in for certain communications gear, which is charged under the telephone line. And we did have some increased communication expenses. We put on a tip line, after the cage rulers incident, an 800-number tip line. We also added an AirPod during the quarter. So there were...
Well, what?
An air card. It's a device you plug into your computer, and you can use it internet anywhere. The prosecutor has that because he doesn't have internet access in court, so he has that.
Why does the prosecutor all of a sudden need internet access in court? Shouldn't the
It's not
prosecutor
all
know
of a
that?
sudden he needed it. He's had it for a few years. They talk back and forth, the Attorney General's office to the lawyers.
What did they do before they had internet? Somehow they managed to hold trials.
It doesn't have anything to do with trials. It has a lot to do with negotiations and maneuvering of the cases.
But my point is, before the internet, they did that, and somehow they managed.
They were paying for that air card out of their own personal pocket. It's a town function, it's the only reason he needs it for town business. And when we discovered that for years he'd been paying that expense out of his pocket, we picked it up. He was under the impression that he could have a cell phone or a air card, but he needs both. So he took the cell phone that he needs, and he paid for the air card out of his pocket, because he assumed we wouldn't pay for it.
We're so dependent on
And
technology.
there's also...
Sick to my stomach.
We're looking at doubled up bills for the both cellular and regular telephone.
What is,
The PD radio communications, the budget originally was $1,000, and just December, we spent $760.
They have had some repairs.
I think there's a repair,
Right, that's when there's one.
They just haven't
I'm just looking at all the,
they occur. It's very expensive.
so none of these were transferred to other accounts? And
Not the radio, no.
does he take his own personal vehicle to court? What is the black SUV he's driving there?
He drives the old,
No, he's driving a black SUV. I've seen him down in Franklin at the courthouse several times in a black SUV.
that's his car.
Gotta be his own personal vehicle.
Well, he's going into court for the town.
Then he's probably on his day off and then goes into court and then leaves.
It's not the SOU's vehicle? That's a black SUV? The same as our white one?
The Expedition, no.
It's an
They don't have
SUV. It's the same size as the one that they have, the white one.
No, there's no SUV in the town of Tilton from the SOU to the best of my knowledge.
Tim?
It could be.
It could be.
I thought they have an Explorer. We have an
No,
Expedition.
no, it's the same size as what we have.
We do.
But I've seen him going to Franklin in that black SUV, and that's why I was wondering where that vehicle showed up from.
He could very well be driving the SOU vehicle. It wouldn't be on us.
No, I was just wondering, I just didn't know where it came from originally. Then someone said that it was the SOU's vehicle.
is he a prosecutor for other towns, too? Or
No, just
just this?
just all.
You're asking about the telephone line item. You can- December, I'll put into...
Okay, so it was 3 months that were put in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, there's multiple months.
Okay.
December there for the sprint charges, so...
The PD, under the PD telephone is the welfare.
The welfare office is still
Do
funded.
you break out the welfare out of the,
That's charged to welfare.
Welfare directly? It's under their
The
account?
land use cell phone is under the same plan, but it's charged to the
Land use.
There was a problem with the October phone bill. There was a dispute that we had to resolve, that's why it was paid late. And typically, the one that you see is December 1st, that was for November's telephone. And then the invoice of January 1, date for Freedom Ring, which is Bay Ring, that's for the December actuals, so that is the December bill. Typically, we're not holding out, the current month during the year. We just do this at the end of the year where we make sure that the December values are billed in December. So you typically see something like that.
What is that town hall heat? Is that 2 months, Tim, or what am I looking at there? There's 232 and then there's 554.
Yes, those are 2 different months.
2 different months. And is it Halifax, is that saving us any money?
A little bit. We actually go on it and off it during the year to try to take advantage of the cycles during peak times, peak usage, so the summer and winter, it makes more sense to be on a regulated bill. And on the off-peak, it makes sense to be on Halifax. But in negotiations with them, when we cut over and did this during the year, so because we were seeing all our savings disappear on the peak months, and then we would save again on the off-peak months. And so it clearly makes sense. You want to be on a regulated plan when everybody's, got electricity burning. So, but in any case, in negotiating with them, they offered to match the rate, which we agreed to for PSNH on certain accounts. So some will cycle on and off, and some will keep on in Halifax as long as they match and don't exceed the PSNH regulated rate. I can tell you, it's a lot of overhead on my office.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
Which switch to turn on?
Is it worth the actual swapping?
We get some savings out of it, in some. It's not thousands, but, it's okay.
And what was the door repair at 61 Business Park Drive?
It was on the overhead door. It wasn't closing all the way. There was a problem with the motor.
What is the heat set up there for? Let's see, we spent $430. Is that natural gas also? It says anything else? What is this set at?
55, is it?
No, it's lower. It's under.
We have a lot of legal issues still hanging out there. There's
Couple that have taken a long time. Back and forth.
Do we have a line for revenue from the Business Park Drive?
Goes into the, right now it goes into the miscellaneous 3506 miscellaneous income. Yeah, 157, 350603.
Where is that?
54,000, second page,
It's
about a halfway down. 3506-03, miscellaneous income / refunds to town.
Okay.
The budget figure.
Is that up to date? They're paid up to date? There's no outstanding?
There's the one we bill quarterly. I don't know that we received that one yet for the quarter ending December. But we typically receive that about now.
But prior to this last quarter, it's up to date?
Yeah,
So
they're all,
that-
in fact, one of our tenants is paid early. So
That's good, that's staying on track, and that's good.
Did they put in the video yet, the surveillance at the skating rink? Were they going to put in video?
Not the skating rink. PD it is, but not the skating rink yet.
Wasn't there talk about
They
doing,
they put it in their budget.
put in their budget for next?
It's in our budget for here, their budget. And Business Park Drive.
Business Park Grange
Grange,
and here. And the highway.
Highway, that's it.
So there must be a bill for that. You know how much we're paying for all these to communicate, like a monthly fee?
We don't pay access. Not all of these are going to be online to access. Some of these are static files.
Record.
Right, record.
The,
Go ahead, Tim.
the one at the park down here, that's online
That's
and
an
monitored.
online.
Could that possibly be set up so that it's streaming, that the general public could access that? One of the best reasons for that is some people might be sitting at home bored, and they could watch and see something and call it in, say, hey, by the way, this is going down right now.
Yeah, through the security camera system, there isn't an ability to do that, but you could have a separate webcam set up. There is plenty of bandwidth visually to allow that. It's a very proprietary system.
I think we'd have to check with.
But anytime you set something like that up, that's a security camera in a public place, it's nice to have it so it's streamed. The general public can watch and say, hey, they might spot something that other people don't, and you don't have to pay to...
We do have also limitations to the number of people we can do at any one time. The actual security system.
And perhaps like WMUR or something might want to put a camera up to get weather times and stuff like that. I know Tilton School has a
Yeah,
camera that you can watch and
right.
Yeah,
see.
webcam could be set up separately from the security system.
Is there anything that we are still self-insuring in the town? 'Cause a few years back, we were doing some self-insuring, but we're not anymore.
Unemployment was, but no, we got on an unemployment plan.
This is a small item, but why does the police department have a post office box?
What? I'm sorry.
Post office box. Why does the police department have a post office box?
Couldn't tell you.
You're paying $96 per quarter.
$96.
Per year. That's a per year.
Per year?
Like I said, it's small, but it's just...
I like it to move it around.
They gotta travel up to it, come back.
Somebody's got to go buy it every day.
Yeah, but they still gotta travel up to it and come back.
Guaranteed, they're
They go
putting it
right
from
by,
home.
the postal service goes right by, too. No other department has a P.O. box, do they? In town?
Keep that in mind for when the PD is in front of you next, Bob. Ask him why he has a post office box.
I like that.
We'll get that answer for next week.
Just,
I want to know.
It just kinda jumps out for what reason? Is that a new line, Tim?
No,
That's always been there?
it's always been there.
I know the PD postage line has been there.
Yeah, the thing, I've been trying to find a solution, some other solution for the postage line, because they spend $400 a year in postage, but rent a machine for $600. So we have $1,000 worth of expense to put $400 worth of postage on. Now, granted, they could have more activity, but they do a lot of registered weighed, reports and things like that. So they definitely have a need for something, but
can buy postage online.
Yeah.
In the internet.
And save money from it.
You can even do it.
You get the
At a
BJ's now.
reduced rate, too.
Don't you still need to have a machine to print off the,
Just regular
Nope.
printer
At
on
a
a...
reduced rate, too.
We've been looking for a solution to that, because to me, it's a small thing, but it just really irritates me when I see we're paying, $600 a year to $400 worth of postage.
Even this postal box is a small thing, but it's irritating. Why?
What's the purpose of it? I can't,
I'm sure there's an answer.
but
Whether we
it's a
like it
good
or not.
answer.
exactly. Is anything else anybody is picking out of the reports here?
Pretty...
Taxes are coming in. At least it's nice to see that they're almost, well, they're 3/4 of the way in.
So much
A year,
crazy
right?
that they bought.
It's been collected. There's nothing unusual in that. I would think that there'll be stragglers coming in over the next month, the year after the year, and the year after that.
It's a very typical kind of collections.
Yep. Alrighty.
That's...
Is there anything anybody else has found in the reports that they would like to just make note of or have the selectmen be aware of? Like P.O. boxes? Okay.
I think Kyle would be it.
Yeah, that's right.
Tim, under welfare, is that a 2-month bill for cell phone?
No, that is many quarters. So we pay it as she submits the transfer. It's roughly about $35 a month.
Okay.
She had to add minutes in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
I just closed down my report, but it should show the months we've run.
Anything else?
This is a really small thing, but under highway, there's Piper printing quantity, no parking, 250 no parking signs. In November, it was $62.94, and then there are 2 payments to them. One for $62.94, one for $237.50, and it looks like the same invoice number, on the same day.
I'm trying to see which
Page, I don't know what page I'm on, page 28.
28 of the detail.
I'm not disputing that the payment, but I'm just curious why there are 2 payments to them in the same, of 2 different amounts for the same thing, the same invoice.
you mean the garage repair?
No, highway postage freight,
Oh, okay.
$62.94, and then down below, $237.50 for the same invoice number.
Yes, this is a problem, I should say, a dispute that Dennis and I continually have. And this is one of these pick your battles things. He's always fiercely maintained that he needs to have a freight line to show when he's paid freight on something like this, so...
You mean Craig? Dennis isn't there anymore, you know?
The Piper printing the signs, actually, the product cost was, what, 82 or 62, whatever, and then $236. The freight to bring it in was 52 something. My explanation to him is the cost to get it in usable form, in other words, at your doorstep to be able to put it up, that's the cost of the signs.
Right.
And that should include the freight, but this is one of these, you'll see it periodically, and he and I have this
That's all right.
argument about this all the time, because I consider it part of the cost of the product.
Highway Department.
And he sees it as a separate item.
Oh, okay, so it's just a bookkeeping thing?
And it's one I don't agree with.
Okay.
Just sort of given.
I'm just curious, it just caught my eye, that's all.
I'll tell you, though, that the repair tickets, that's one that there's no reason why we couldn't fashion something homegrown, quantity 500 for $236.
50 cents a piece seems
These
pricey.
are just internal things that, they don't need to be 3-part press hard, kind of things with pre-printed. They could be something more simple.
Underneath, on page 25, PD equipment purchases, $6,338.75 for gear lockers. What are those?
Gear lockers. 15.
Oh, my God.
They're 24-inch deep, and,
They're not cheap.
no, they're not.
They're like
No,
foot
they're not.
lockers.
But, I mean,
They're built to last. though.
They're built to last.
They're made for sweaty vests, and the ones that they had previous to this were school-type lockers that didn't allow hanging.
You can't hang them up. You cannot.
And they were rusting out. These are made specifically to be able to breathe and appropriately hold the amount of stuff that they need.
doesn't that seem like a lot of money?
It does. And that's at a discount.
It's really nice, they have gun lockers inside of it.
That's the other thing.
This is at a discount. If we bought 15, we got the 22% discount.
Yeah, a lot of research was done on these.
Oh, yeah.
If you can actually hang their clothing in the locker right now, they have their vests and miscellaneous items in their locker, and shoes and things like that. Their uniforms are actually in the maintenance closet. All of the maintenance supply is actually in the utility room, which we get dinged for each and every time LGC does a walkthrough. But that's where the uniforms are hung up, because that's how it's the only room they have. So these will, each individual...
So why is
have
your
their own.
uniforms there at the PD? Their uniforms don't go home with them?
No,
No?
no, because rarely do you see a PD off of PD with their uniforms go home with them.
Because I see where Henry's Dry Cleaners is in there. I imagine that's a contractual.
All of the offices have
That's
dry
not a
cleaning.
contractual thing?
All of their offices have contractual dry cleaning in there, built in. Just, it's kind of understandable if you have somebody, a drunk that pukes all over you, you're not going to take that home to your family. That's,
The highway also has a uniform cleaning one.
Right.
Same deal. There isn't a specific contract.
certain pathogens that you really don't want to bring home to your family.
Also keep
In that
them
kind of
professional
business.
looking and
Well, you're speaking to
cleaned
the
and
wrong
pressed.
person.
I was just going to
I
say,
hear you.
I'm not grossed
I think
out
I
by
can beat
much,
them hand for hand.
On a regular day-to-day basis, I'll make it right.
yes, plastic.
No, I just thought it
wears
seemed like an
over.
awful lot of money for 15 lockers, and I thought that's what it said.
If you've looked at prices for just regular, file cabinets, like we have...
They have regular
They're just-
school
they're just
lockers that are
ridiculous.
about 16 inches deep, so that you wouldn't be able to hang a shirt up in it, because they're
hanger.
regular school lockers. These are 24 inches deep, and I believe they're 15 inches or 18 inches wide. And within it, there's another locker that the gun can be set there so they can go home without the gun.
So the cleaning company, dry cleaners comes in, they put them into the lockers, or they still put them in the closet?
Oh, no, there's a drop-off and a pickup for the dry cleaning.
And then the guys take them, put them in their
Then they
individual...
take it from the truck. They're only allowed so much dry cleaning a year.
Brings ours down to...
I'm going to move the adjourn.
I'm going to second that.
Why?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any discussion?
Call the motion.
Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you all very
Objection was about
much.
15 minutes too late.
I was just
I
gonna,
know, huh?
I said I have an objection, was about 15 minutes too late.
it seemed like
You know what? I'm not taking these home.
It does with a lot of money.
We ate almost all
I
of it.
don't know.
I know, that's my
I was
supper.
looking at that number.
Wednesday night is candy night.
It's dinner.
Candy and coffee dinner night.
What did you want to be when you grew up, little boy? I'm going to be on the budget committee.
I just went to the dentist today, so.
What happened?
It's only money.